Psychedelics can dramatically distort perception and cognition. Roughly half an hour after ingestion, colors may appear more vivid, surfaces can seem to ripple or move, and time itself may feel warped. Many users describe a euphoric detachment from reality, with a boundary between self and surroundings begins to blur. But when the experience spirals out of control, the consequences can become catastrophic. One afternoon, a 21-year-old Hispanic man returned home after work and reportedly consumed an unknown amount of psychedelic mushrooms. Soon afterward, he entered a severe psychological crisis and began behaving unpredictably. His brother and stepfather attempted to restrain and calm him, but he broke free, smashing a glass vase during the struggle. In a frantic state, he started rolling and rubbing himself across the shattered glass, badly cutting his arms and legs. After his family managed to stop him from further injuring himself, they sat him near a desk in hopes he would settle down. Instead, in an act that horrified everyone present, he grabbed a sharpened number 2 pencil from the desk, positioned it upright, and repeatedly slammed his face into it. When he lifted his head, it became clear he had driven the pencil deep into both eye sockets multiple times. Moments later, he staggered up again, vomited on himself, and collapsed in a further chaos while his family panicked and called emergency responders. Despite desperate medical efforts, his condition proved fatal. Psilocybin mushrooms themselves are considered relatively low in physical toxicity. Fatal overdoses from the chemical alone are extraordinarily rare and would require consuming massive quantities. However, the real danger often comes from behavioral toxicity, the irrational and psychotic actions people may commit while detached from reality. People under intense hallucinations have jumped from buildings, wandered into traffic, or violently harmed themselves during full psychotic episodes. In many cases, it is not the compound directly killing the person, but the mental state it triggers. Now consider methamphetamine. When meth enters the system, it floods the brain with dopamine and hyperactivates the sympathetic nervous system. Users often report feeling unstoppable, hyperalert, energized, intensely focused, and incapable of fatigue. The stimulant high can continue for 8 to 16 hours with little need for food or sleep. But excessive use pushes the body into a state of physiological collapse. On May 26th in Orlando, Florida, witnesses contacted police after spotting a man shaking violently near a racetrack while repeatedly asking for his son. By the time officers arrived, the man had disappeared, only to later be discovered in a lake infested with alligators. Officers tossed him a flotation vest, but he refused assistance while the reptiles attacked him in the water. Shockingly, he resurfaced, bloodied, and severely injured, clutching gardening shears like something out of a horror film. He rushed toward police vehicles, and officers deployed tasers several times, yet the shocks appeared to have little effect. The confrontation escalated further when the man climbed into a patrol car and reached toward a rifle inside. At that point, officers responded with lethal force. Methamphetamine severely disrupts the brain's reward circuitry and central nervous system. It can overheat the body, destabilize perception, and trigger violent paranoia or delirium. In extreme cases, users suffer heart attacks, organ failure, or psychotic rampages fueled by complete disconnection from reality. Cannabis is another substance often viewed as relatively safe. After smoking, many people experience relaxation, enhanced sensory perception, increased appetite, and euphoria. Yet reactions vary widely depending on dosage, strain, mental state, and individual neurochemistry. While THC alone has no established lethal overdose threshold in humans, psychological complications can still become dangerous under rare circumstances. In 2018 in California, a woman who regularly visited a dog park became acquainted with a man there and later accompanied him to his apartment to smoke marijuana together, an entirely legal activity in the state. After using cannabis through a bong, the situation suddenly turned violent. Without warning, the woman jumped up, rushed to the kitchen, and grabbed several knives. Within seconds, she launched into a frenzied attack, stabbing the man 108 times. His body sustained devastating injuries from head to toe. When officers arrived, they discovered that she had also killed her own dog and stabbed herself dozens of times while continuing to attack herself. Police attempted physical restraint and deployed tasers multiple times, but she remained in a severe psychotic state. Eventually, an officer struck her arm repeatedly with a baton until she finally dropped the weapon. The victim died from his injuries, but the woman survived. During court proceedings, experts testified that she had experienced cannabis-induced psychosis, a rare but documented psychiatric reaction, especially among inexperienced users. Rather than receiving a lengthy prison sentence, she was placed on probation and ordered to complete community service, a decision that deeply angered the victim's family. Another disturbing case involved a 26-year-old martial arts fighter and his friend, who reportedly consumed extremely high amounts of psychedelic mushrooms together. At first, everything appeared normal, but eventually both men became convinced they were trapped in an apocalyptic struggle between God and the devil. Their delusions escalated into a violent confrontation. Later, another friend entered the apartment and discovered the fighter naked in the kitchen, cooking parts of the victim's remains on the stove. Investigators found the victim mutilated on a couch, and an autopsy revealed he was still alive when his chest had been torn open and his heart removed. Unlike the previous cannabis case, the fighter was convicted and sentenced to 47 years in prison. Cases like these often fuel debate about how courts interpret drug-induced psychosis and criminal responsibility. But one pattern appears repeatedly across these incidents. With substances such as psilocybin, the greatest threat is rarely pure chemical toxicity. The more immediate danger comes from panic, delusion, psychosis, and the collapse of rational judgment. Once perception and reality separate completely, people can become a danger to themselves and everyone around them.